This is the Easy Betting Show. My name is Easy, and we are finally on part 3 of the Week 1 college football picks. If you did not watch part 1 or part 2, that's okay. Go back and watch them, though, because it's awesome. This one is going to be the 7 o'clock and later games on Saturday, and then also the Sunday and Monday game. So if you're looking for the games before 7 o'clock on Saturday, that is part 2, which is the one that I did yesterday on my channel. So go check that one out. After you watch this one, give both of them a like for me. Helps me out a lot. But yeah, going through obviously the games that I like for this slate. I won't be doing all of them just because I don't have the mental capacity for it and because it takes too long. So I have like 10 plays that I'm going to put out for this slate. And then as I have in the last couple, I'll be going over my units that I'm betting for each game as well, just for the transparency of it. And so we can kind of keep up with it together and see how I'm doing as the days and the season progress. So with that being said, I know the game started at 6 o'clock. I'm just going to go ahead and get right into it. And the first game that I'm going to be talking about is Western Kentucky at Alabama. The spread is Alabama minus 31.5, and the over-under is 59.5. This one obviously comes with some bullet points that everyone knows, even if you don't really know much about college football. You probably still know that Nick Saban retired. It's all anyone's really talked about in the offseason, especially for Alabama. He's working with Pat McAfee and Lee Corso now on College Game Day, which is kind of weird, but whatever. He's getting paid for it. So in comes Kalen DeBoer from Washington, and he's a great coach. In his first year at Washington, he did way better than anyone expected. He's coming off of the national championship where they got blasted last year. You know, he's a good coach, especially with receivers. So it's not necessarily a typical year one type situation for Alabama, because you know you're going to have that good coach there, and you know you're going to have Alabama players. Even though a lot of them did leave when Saban left and they went to the NFL, he brought a lot of guys in with him from Washington, and he hit the portal hard too because, one, it's Alabama, and two, he's a well-known face. So it is going to be a little bit better of a spot for them than it would be for a prototypical first-year coach. On top of that, they do bring Jalen Milroe back at quarterback, who's probably going to be one of the Heisman favorites throughout the entirety of the season. He had a great year last year, throwing for 2,800 yards, rushing for almost 535 total touchdowns on the season. There's no reason to think he can't replicate that this year, other than maybe the receiving core isn't going to be as good. There's a lot of question marks around this receiving group. But like I said, DeBoer, one of his strong points, at least at Washington, was on the receiver aspect. So that's probably the good question mark to have for the offense. With the running back spots, you are going to have Justice Haynes and Jam Miller, which I think is a great name, at running back. They're probably going to split time for the most part at running back. So not really a negative there. You know, Alabama running backs are going to be good. You know, the offensive line is going to be good. So really the only question mark on that side of the ball is the receivers. On the defensive side of the ball, again, it's an Alabama defense, so they're probably going to be pretty good, but there is some question marks there just because of the turnover. But the defensive line is most likely going to be the strong point of that defense. Now, for Western Kentucky, Tyson Helton is back for his 6th year with the Hilltoppers as coach. He's led the team to 8 or more wins in 4 of the 5 years he's been there. He has 14 starters returning this year. 9 of them are on offense, which obviously is good for any offense, but the quarterback is not one of those returning spots. They do have TJ Finley coming in from Texas State, and he was big at Texas State last year. He threw for over 3,200 yards, 24 touchdowns. He should be a really good QB for this offense. They also have an experienced O line, which is obviously is going to help him out both in protection and in the run game. And in the run game, they have Elijah Young, who's back this year from last year, who's a playmaker in the run game, but also in the passing game. He had 5 rushing touchdowns and 5 receiving touchdowns last year. So he's going to help in multiple aspects, which could help them in this game specifically with Alabama. You know, anytime an underdog has a running back that can produce in the passing game, that's going to help you out. That being said, Alabama obviously should win this game pretty easily. I don't think Western Kentucky is going to be a complete just run over because they should be pretty good this year. They'll probably be the second best team in Conference USA behind Liberty, but I don't think they have a shot at winning this game. I do think they have a shot at scoring some points, though. Like I said, the Alabama defense is a lot of new faces, which means they're probably not going to gel and have that chemistry in week 1. So there are going to be some points where this Western Kentucky offense that has some guys on it, especially with Finley at quarterback, they're going to be able to move down the field. So I'm obviously leaning Bama to cover, but my bet for this one is the over 59.5. I think Alabama is going to be able to score pretty much whenever they want to, but I think Western Kentucky gets at least 2 touchdowns, and it's possible they could be like 17 or 21 points at the end of this game. So if I had to guess, I would say like 49-17. So yeah, I'm definitely betting the over. I think this gets to 60 for sure. And it's one that I'm pretty high on. The odds that I got on that over 59.5 is minus 112. So I'm going to be putting 1.2 units on that one to get back a unit. And we move on to the next game, which is UNLV at Houston. This is probably one that a lot of people aren't talking about just because there's a lot of question marks in this one. But it is one that I like for a couple of reasons. The spread is Houston minus 3.5 and the over under is 55.5. These are two teams that aren't great, but UNLV did surprise some people last year. They don't bring a lot of guys back from that team, but they brought in a lot of guys, so they shouldn't really miss much. But obviously that could be low in the beginning of the season. They had a great run game last year with Jaden Thomas, and he's back this year along with 7 starters on a defense that was really good. They only averaged giving up 18 points a game last year, so they should still be pretty good on defense. But they did lose some key pieces there, so it's probably not going to be as good as it was last year, but it's going to be decent still. I think the run game is really going to be kind of the hard-hitting part of UNLV this year, though. On the other side, Houston, like I said, they weren't great last year. They only went 4-8. They bring in Willie Fritz, though, this year's first-year coach. He's from Tulane. He's a really good offensive mind. They also went and got Donovan Smith. Or no, they didn't get they have Donovan Smith at quarterback, who is a pretty good quarterback, and he should fit really well in a Willie Fritz style offense. And then they also bring in Michigan State transfer Malik Carr at tight end, who's projected to have a big year for Houston as well. Their defense, though, was not very good last year, and they're probably going to struggle this year again, especially early in the season. In this game specifically, with the proven ground game of UNLV and Houston just not having that good of a defense, especially not having a good defensive line, they should be able to run the ball very well in this game. Now, I will say UNLV has a lot of question marks at quarterback. So they're probably not going to have much of a passing game, but they still probably will be able to throw the ball some just because of Houston's defense, really. So this is another one where I'm betting the over. I'm taking the over 55.5 at minus 118. I'm going to put 1.2 units on that one as well. 2-win a unit. And it's mainly just, like I said, Houston doesn't have a defense. UNLV should be able to run all over it. And Willie Fritz offense with a guy like Donovan Smith at quarterback, he's got some weapons. They should be able to score well as well also. So I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I do think Houston wins. I don't know if they cover. I could easily see this being a 3-point game, but I think it's going to be a high-scoring 3-point game. Wouldn't be surprised if both teams are in the 30s. Sam Houston State at Rice is the next one I'm going to talk about. Sam Houston is plus 10.5 on the spread. The over-under is 47.5. And I think this is going to be a fun one too. Sam Houston is in their 11th season under head coach Casey Keeler. They only won 3 games last year, but it was their first season in the FBS. So what can you really say about that? They were not a great FCS team, but they did make the playoffs a couple times. So it was kind of hit or miss, I would say, with Keeler. I do think he has a much better year this year in his second year at the FBS level, though. They do have some guys that can produce a lot more than they did last year. They have a new QB in Grant Gunnell, who was with Arizona and North Texas, started at both of those schools. He only had 22 pass attempts last year, though, so he's basically just been a career backup for the most part, especially with Arizona. They do bring back their running back, John Gentry, and they bring back their receiving duo in Noah Smith and Malik Phillips. Noah Smith and Phillips, they combined for 1,200 yards and 7 touchdowns last year. Noah Smith was probably the bulk of that. He's definitely their leading receiver, and he's a guy that's going to have to play well if Sam Houston's offense is going to be moving the ball. But John Gentry at running back was also pretty good last year. He ran for almost 400 yards and 3 touchdowns. So he's a guy that can definitely help the offense get moving too. On defense, they bring back Kevin, I don't know. I'm going to say Kevin Gaither, who had 72 tackles last year. He was their leading tackler. They also bring back Isaiah Nixon, who led the team with 5 sacks. And they bring back cornerback Caleb Weaver, who had 2 picks last season. So they should be pretty decent on Sam Houston. Sam Houston should be pretty good on defense this year with adding some pieces onto their roster as well. And overall, this team should be pretty experienced in general. They have 22 seniors on the roster. And with a proven coaching staff, like an 11-year guy in Keeler, they should have a much better year this year than the 3-9, I guess. Yeah, 3-9 that they went last year. Math is hard. On the other side of the ball, the Owls won 6 games last year under seventh-year head coach Mike Bloomgren. They have a chance to make 3 straight bowl games for the first time since 2012 through 14. So they're definitely going to be trying to make another bowl game, which, I mean, everyone is, but some teams you feel like just kind of have bowl game as more of a purpose than any other thing. And this is definitely one of those teams. They also have a new quarterback this year in Temple transfer, EJ Warner, who is Kurt Warner's son. So that's interesting, I guess. You would think Kurt Warner's son would be better than going to Temple and then Rice, but I don't know. Kurt Warner did work at a grocery store, so I don't know. He has 6,100 passing yards and 41 touchdowns in his career, so he has been decent in his career. They also bring back receivers Bowden Green and Rawson McNeil, and they bring back Landon Ransom Goals too, but he's going to be out for this one because he got hurt, so he's not really worth talking about. That is going to be an impact probably for Rice in this game. They also bring back 3 offensive linemen from last season. And they return 8 players on the defensive side of the ball, including leading tackler Myron Morrison. So they do bring back a lot of guys. It's just a matter of how good were those guys on defense specifically. But for this game, I don't know if Sam Houston can win. I do think they have some questions, especially Grant Gunnell at quarterback. You know, how good is he going to be? But I do think they stay in this one and keep it close enough to cover the spread. I think 11 points is just too high for this Rice team that does struggle a lot at times. And I definitely think Sam Houston's going to be better as the season progresses. I definitely think they eclipse their 3-win total from last year. So I'm taking Sam Houston plus 10.5. It is minus 122 on this one. So I'm going to put 1.3 units on this one. I do really like this one. If I didn't say it earlier, the over under is 47.5. I would probably lean the under on that, but I'm not actually going to bet that. Next game that I'm talking about is Nevada at Troy. Nevada is plus 9.5 on the spread on this one, and the over under is 44.5. Now, obviously, we've seen Nevada play already, and they looked way better than pretty much anyone thought they would be. Now, granted, SMU probably made them look better than they actually are because they did a lot of dumb shit, got a lot of flags, played a lot of stupid plays. So I don't know if Nevada's actually as good as they looked last week, but they did a lot of good things last week. So there's no reason to think they can't, come off of that game where they played well, keep that momentum and going to this game against a team that hasn't played yet. On top of that, Troy has a new coach this year with Gerard Parker coming in from Notre Dame. He was with Notre Dame for 2 years. He is a head coach in the past. He was at Purdue. He got fired from Purdue in 2016 with a 0-6 start. So not great in that aspect, but you did grab a guy from Notre Dame. So that's, but Troy only brings back 4 starters from last season, which is basically an entirely new team. They got a new quarterback starting this year in Goose Crowder, who only had 13 pass attempts last year. So he's basically just a new guy completely. And then the starting running back this year is going to be last year's backup running back, Damian Taylor. So they don't really have a lot going for them on offense, in my opinion. They're also going to be without one of their big receivers, Chris Lewis. He's not playing this year. He's found out last year that he had cancer, so he's been going through cancer treatments and decided that he's not playing this year, which does suck for Troy, and it sucks for him, of course. But I definitely think that impacts this game. I'm going to take Nevada plus 9.5 in this one. I'm also going to sprinkle on the money line. I think Nevada isn't as good as they appeared to be last week, but I think they're better than a lot of people thought. And I don't think Troy is going to be very good at all this year. There's just too many question marks on this team. And with a first-year head coach and so many new pieces, they're going to start slow. And I think Nevada's got a real shot at winning this game. So plus 9.5, minus 115. I'm putting 1.2 units on that. And then I'm going to put half a unit on the money line too at plus 245. So love both of those. The next game is probably the biggest late game of the day. Notre Dame at Texas A&M. All eyes are going to be on this game in College Station. It should be a great game. 2 really good teams that already have playoff implications. And I think this is a big potential playoff spot for both of these teams. For Notre Dame, they have a pretty easy schedule outside of a couple games, and obviously this is one of them. If they can win here, this would drastically help them get into the college football playoff. And on the other side, with the SEC getting most likely 3 or 4 teams into the playoffs, if Texas A&M can win this game, that's a huge step for them too, because they have a lot tougher schedule with the SEC teams. So even if they drop a couple in the SEC, if they have a big win against Notre Dame, that could help them a lot. So I think this is a big game for both teams, even on top of just being the first game of the season and against ranked teams and all of that. Into the teams themselves, both of these teams are going to be defensive-minded teams and defensive-heavy teams. Their defense, both defenses are going to be substantially better than the offenses are going to be, in my opinion. Not saying the offenses are going to be bad, because they won't be, but the defenses are just going to be that much better. For Notre Dame, defensive coordinator Al Golden, he's pretty much the reason that Notre Dame is where they are defensively, especially in the secondary. They're loaded in the secondary. They're probably going to have multiple NFL drafts come out of this secondary. So that's going to have to be something that Connor Wegman, who is Texas A&M's quarterback, for those that don't know, is going to have to adjust on and basically just not make mistakes. I really think this game comes down to who screws up the most because of these defenses. But anyway, continuing with Notre Dame, the offensive side of the ball to me has questions. The O-line could struggle. I know a lot of people are still expecting Notre Dame to have that Notre Dame-esque offensive line, but you just don't know what these new guys are going to have. Obviously, they lost Joe Alt and Blake Fisher to the draft. Charles Jagusa, I think it's Jagusa, I don't know. Charles Jagusa had a knee injury in the preseason training camp, whatever you want to call it. So they won't have him now. That's 3 big pieces to lose on the offensive line. So there is a very good chance that this O-line struggles early in the season. On top of that, as Jake said, Riley Leonard is now the quarterback for Notre Dame, who was at Duke with Mike Elko. Who better to know how to stop you than your old coach? They're going to be ready for everything that Riley Leonard has in this game. Now, on the other side of the ball, like I said, Texas A&M, they're going to be very good on defense. Mike Elko is a great defensive mind. You know they're going to have their players ready. Also, a good piece of the defense now is Purdue transfer Nick Scourton. He's going to be a very big piece of this defense, I think, and I think it's going to have an immediate benefit for this defense. Now, they don't have the secondary that Notre Dame has. They're going to be good, but the Notre Dame secondary is just going to be really good. But they are going to be good also. Like I said, their quarterback is Connor Wegman, who I think is a pretty good quarterback. He hasn't really gotten a whole lot of talk about him in the offseason or leading up to the season. And that's mainly just because there's other things to talk about with Texas A&M. But I do think he's going to be a pretty good quarterback. Now, he is coming back from injury, so that could affect it some. You just don't really know how that's going to look. But I think he's going to play fairly well. That being said, I'm rolling with the defenses here. I'm going under 47.5. It's minus 105 too, so you're getting pretty good odds on it. So I'm putting 1.1 unit on that. And I'm also going to bet Notre Dame +3 at minus 112 with 1.1 unit. I know it's at College Station. I know Elko, is going to be ready for Riley Leonard, but I think Wegman or potentially somebody else on the offense is going to make mistakes against this Notre Dame defense. This Notre Dame defense is stacked. They're going to be ready for this game. They're going to be ready for the environment. And I think the defense makes a game-changing play for Notre Dame that wins them this game. So I'm more confident in the under than I am on Notre Dame +3, but I am betting both with the same odds. So I guess you could say I'm even on both of them. But yeah, I'm arguing with a lot of people on this one, but I'm rolling with Notre Dame in this one. And I hate Notre Dame, so you know that I really like them. So I don't know what to say. All right, I got 3 games left. One more game for the Saturday slate, and then I'm going to roll through the Sunday and Monday games as well. The last one that I like on Saturday is Wyoming at Arizona State. The spread is Arizona State minus 7.5. The over-under is 48.5. And this game could really go either way to me. A lot of people that I've heard talking are on Wyoming, and I am leaning Wyoming plus 7.5. I think this is going to be a really close game, probably a 3 or 4 point game, truly either way. And so the spread being 7.5, I just like Wyoming for that. But I'm not going to bet it. I'm betting the under 48.5. Yeah, you probably realize at this point I'm betting a lot of over-unders in these. It's just what I like for this slate. But yeah, under 48.5 just seems like too many points. And it has too many points because of so many question marks in this game. Wyoming has a new coach in Jay Sawvell. Arizona State has a second-year coach in Kenny Dillingham, who I don't think is that good of a coach. and both have question marks across pretty much the entirety of their team. The biggest for Wyoming being quarterback Evan Svoboda. I don't know. Good luck trying to pronounce that one without Google. He'll have to not make a mistake against the Sun Devil secondary that should be pretty good. Their defensive line probably isn't going to be great, but their secondary should be pretty good from what they have coming back from last year. The Cowboys would bring back Harrison Whaley, but he got hurt, so he's not playing in this one. That is a massive hit for this Wyoming team. He rushed for almost 1,000 yards last year. He would have been the ground game for this team, and now they're not going to have him. That's a big hit for this team that I think even more so helps the under for this. Wyoming should also have a pretty good defense this year. They run quick. They seem to have a pretty good football IQ in the linebacking core, which obviously is important. And they have some depth too, which college teams with defensive depth is a massive help. So they have defensive players. I mean, they have players at the skill position on offense too that'll help them some. But I don't know. It's just there's so many question marks in this game. Both of these defenses are going to be fairly good. The question marks on offense are going to be a killer. I think the best bet is the under by far in this one. So yeah, under 48.5 minus 114, 1.2 units. Like I said, I'm leaning Wyoming plus 7.5 because I think it's going to be like a 3 or 4 point game. But I don't know. I think Wyoming has a chance of winning too, but Arizona State could easily win by 10 and the score be like 21-10. So I'm just going with the under. It's easy. The Sunday game, USC at LSU. The spread is LSU -4, and the over-under is 64, which sounds high, but then you remember that neither one of these teams have a defense. USC hadn't had a defense show up to a game since like 2014, and LSU's defense was horrible last year, especially in the passing game, which is what USC does. You know, that's why Lincoln Riley's there, is basically just to throw it all over the place and hope the defense can stop one possession. So I think that's pretty much going to be what happens in this one too. It's in Las Vegas, which is stupid against these two teams, but you know, whatever. I also think this is a must-win type game for both of these teams too. LSU has a tough schedule in the SEC this year, and this win could really help their playoff chances. And USC being in the Big Ten this year for the first time wins just as important for playoff potential. So a couple other things that just to have off, USC hasn't lost a season opener since 2016, and Lincoln Riley's already on the hot seat, even though this is only going to be his third year at USC. So he's got to be prepped for this game. Obviously, Caleb Williams is gone at USC. Jaden Daniels is gone for LSU. So new quarterbacks on both sides of the ball. USC has Miller Moss now, who comes in from Louisville. He didn't get a whole lot of playing time at Louisville, but he did look really good in their bowl game last year. So that kind of bodes well for how the season's going to go. And then really the exact same thing for what's his name? I can't remember the guy's name at LSU. Hang on, stay with me. Garrett Nussmeier. That's the guy's name. Such a weird name. Garrett Nussmeier, who pretty much the same thing as Moss did at Louisville. He played really well in their bowl game, but didn't really get a whole lot of playing time before that. So it's kind of the exact same pace for these quarterbacks. Now, back to USC, they do have a lot of pieces around Miller Moss that I think is going to help him be good early in the season. He has some guys to throw it to, like Deuce Robinson, Zachariah Brown, tight end Lake McCree, which I wonder if Lake is his real first name or not. If it is, it's a hell of a first name. And then the bulk of their running back room from last year is gone too, but they do bring back Quentin Joyner, who had a touchdown last year, and then they bring in Woody Marks from Mississippi State, who has almost 2,000 rushing yards in his career and over 1,000 receiving yards in his career. So he's definitely a guy that can come in and help out both on the run and in the passing game. For LSU to help out Garrett Nussmeier early on in the season, they do bring back Kyron Lacey, who was their number 3, I guess, receiver from last year with the other 2 leaving. So Kyron Lacey is going to be a big piece of this offense. But they also brought in CJ Daniels from Liberty, who had over 1,000 receiving yards last year for Liberty. So that's a huge step up for Nussmeier to throw to as well. And then, like I said, neither one of these teams are going to have a defense. They may be a little bit better than they were last year, but a little bit better from sucking, still sucking. So you probably already guessed where I was going with this at the beginning of it. I'm betting over 64. Minus 112, so I'm going to put 1.2 units on that as well. I think this is an absolute shootout. I wouldn't be surprised if whoever wins gets to 40, and it's like 42-37 or something like that. I'm also betting LSU minus 4, also minus 112, so also 1.2 units on that one as well. I just like LSU's team a little bit better. Like I said, I don't think either one's going to have much of a defense, but LSU's defensive line could cause Moss to have a little bit of issues. I mean, their D line isn't great, but they should get a little bit of pressure. And I think that might be the factor that gets them the win. So absolute shootout, betting the over for sure, and LSU minus 4. And then the last game for this week is Boston College at Florida State. Florida State is 16.5 point favorites, and I'm hammering that. I'm not going to talk much about this one because I think this is a fairly easy look at for this game. FSU is going to come into this one pissed. They went halfway around the world to lose to a team that they thought they probably should have beat by 20. They're going to come back home and they're going to beat the brakes off of Boston College. Bill O'Brien is in his first year with Boston College. It's going to be a learning curve for him coming back from the NFL. It's going to be a learning curve for the team and with a first-year coach. And I just don't see much good for Boston College in this game. I think this is a blowout. I think you could probably alt spread this up to like 27.5 probably. But the 16.5 to me seems very easy. So at minus 110 for 16.5, I'm actually going to put 3.3 units on this to win 3 units because I really think Florida State just lays into them on this one. Even though they're not the team that everybody thought they were coming into the season, they now have a game under their belts. They're going to be better on both sides of the ball than they were last year. No, I still don't trust DJU, but he doesn't have to do much in this one. So I don't think it's going to be as hard of a game than it was last week, and it's at home. So that's going to help a lot too. So yeah, I think this is an absolute blowout. Take Florida State minus 16.5 and take an alt spread too if you want to kind of get some value out of it. I probably will. I'll probably take like minus 23.5, put a unit on that too. But like I said, I'm going for 3 units on the 16.5. I think this is going to be, I think this game is going to be what everybody was saying it was going to be last week against Georgia Tech. So yeah, that's my games for Saturday night, Sunday and Monday. Like I said, if you missed part 2, that's the Saturday afternoon games. Go back and check that one out. A lot of good plays in that one as well. Also, if you missed part 1, my Friday games for the games that are tonight, they're on part 1. So if you want to check that one out, just skip like halfway through the video and you can check that one out as well. But yeah, that does it for me in this one. I appreciate y'all hanging out with me. Always nice to see people in the chat. Makes me feel like I'm not just talking to myself. Always appreciate that. This week coming up, or next week, I guess, coming up, NFL starts. So I'll have multiple NFL games. I'll also have a couple college picks for week 2. So be on the lookout for that. Come hang out with me in all of them. Make sure to like this video if you could. Like all my videos. It's just a button. Just click it. Super easy. Hit the subscribe button too for me. Trying to get to 100 subscribers. And yeah, I'll see y'all on the next one.